Welcome into a video. I'm going to talk about overtraining and give you my take, my perspective on it. Hopefully help you out with your pursuit in the gym to better yourself, to build muscle, to make some gains, get stronger, get more flexible, whatever your goal is. Before we get into that, I want to mention that I'm offering my services as an online trainer. So if you're looking to, whatever your goal may be, you can fill out an application. The link is in the description. I'll read through it. And if I think it's going to be a good fit, I'll reach out to you, video call, we'll chat, we'll see if things are vibing, if it's going to work, and we can go from there. So if you're interested in entrusting in me to help you progress along your way, I'm looking for a couple more people to work with where I really give you everything I've got. It's a little pricier, but I've got a different form of online training that's going to be more cost effective coming out soon. So if the price is a problem, stay tuned because I'm going to offer an additional service that's adjusted a little bit to try and include more people that maybe can't afford the $700 a month. So anyways, let's get into the video with my take on overtraining. It's very controversial. A lot of people have hot takes on this, feel a certain kind of way, get upset, get rattled, overtrain. I'm going to hopefully provide some clarity for it. It's going to be in depth. I'm going to start rambling a little bit here, but if you listen, focus in, give me your attention, this is going to benefit you. It's going to benefit your perspective and what you go into the gym and how you train. It's going to allow you to see more results and do it in a better way. So the first thing for you to wrap your head around is that there isn't a fixed thing that's overtraining. So if somebody has trained for a really long period of time and they've, pushed their physique really hard and they've built a lot of muscle, what they can do, what their routine looks like, it's going to be way more intense than somebody who's just starting out. And so what might be overtraining for a beginner may not be for somebody that's really advanced and really experienced. Example would be Arnold Schwarzenegger's Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding, which is a pretty intense workout program, or the recommendations in there are intense. He was, taking a whole bunch of anabolic steroids, and he was the top rated muscle guy in the world. So obviously his workout routine is probably going to be quite extreme. So if you're a very beginner and you jump right on that, maybe some of these concerns that people have with overtraining where you could injure yourself, or your muscles are going to shrink, or you're going to not see any gains from it, you're doing too much, could be relevant. But if you start out under the general recommendations of a more reasonable routine, where you're hitting each muscle once a week or twice a week, you do 3 to 4 sets per exercise, 8 to 15 reps per set, and you rest a minute in between sets, 2 minutes, whatever is typical standard, and then you push with intensity to failure or close. It's kind of generally agreed upon module of how you should train to probably get the best results for across the broadest range of people. It's a great place to start. Follow those principles, do a few different exercises for each body part. Simple, fairly simple, and you just got to show up consistently and do that. You will see results. You will start to build muscle and gain some strength. But that's not going to, in a linear way, allow you to just keep building and building and building. You're going to notice if you stick with it that you go, hey, this is awesome, and then you start to plateau off. Your body adapts to the stress and stimulus, the demand that you put on it. Okay. And so then to continue to see progress, you need to find ways to make your program more demanding. How do you do that? Well, if you're always doing 3 to 4 sets and you've been doing that for 6 months to a year and now you're plateaued, for example, let's bump that up to 5 or 6 sets per exercise. All right. If we've been hitting chest once a week, following the same split, maybe it's time to start doing 2 times a week. Okay. If I'm doing the same weight that I was doing 6 months ago, maybe I need to just up the weight a little bit. And adding in some variability where you change the rest times, maybe bump them up, try resting 3 minutes in between sets, try resting a minute in between sets. Also varying the tempo is good. So adding some variability can be good. And there we do faster reps and you do slower reps. But generally, to simplify it, you want to find ways to make your training program more difficult. And if you're having trouble, what exactly does that mean? How can I make this workout that I've been doing consistently more challenging? I could add more weight. I could add more sets. I could do the workout more often. How do I challenge my body further to make a strong argument for it to adapt by building more muscle and more strength? I found this perspective to be way better than just follow the routine, blast your muscles, and then rest and repeat, and it's you plateau. It doesn't continue to see progress. So if you follow that ideology, you could see where over many years you keep upping the ante, you keep making the workouts more difficult. You start doing more sets, you do more reps, you add more weight, you train more often. Slowly paying attention to your body, being smart about it, doing warm-up sets. Not just like all of a sudden doubling your sets out of nowhere, adding little bits, adapting, changing, tweaking, progressing. How can I make the workout more difficult, more difficult? If you do that consistently over 5-10 years, where that person ends up versus where they started is going to be way more extreme. And what they're doing now to, maintain their physique and potentially carve out more gains as they're at a higher level. It gets more and more difficult to do so, but hopefully I'm pulling for you, buddy. Hopefully you're still carving out some gains. Could be considered overtraining for somebody who's just starting out. So that's the whole point I'm trying to make, is it really depends where you're at in your journey. I know some of the things that I've claimed to be doing, people will say, oh, it's overtraining. It's going to, like, oh, I'll do 40 sets of arms. But I've been insanely consistent with my arm training for over a decade. I started out with just 3 to 4 sets, hit them once a week, once every 4 or 5 days, 12 to 15 reps, 1 to 2 exercises. And that worked in the beginning. And then I just have continuously added more over many years, to the point where my body actually responded fairly well. It's already adapted to doing, let's say, 15 sets per workout. And by then adding more and more sets, it seemed to respond in a positive way. I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but generally finding ways to continue to make your training more demanding if you want to continue to see progress. If you're okay, you get content at a certain level, then right on. For me personally, what I find motivating about going to the gym is the prospect of at least potentially making more gains. That's what makes it fun. And it becomes a puzzle, it becomes difficult to figure out, and you're constantly tweaking and adjusting. And how can I continue to make gains given your genetic potential, given you're staying natural, which are, that's something I've chosen to do. Then you're going to have to find ways to up your training to make it more intense, to make it more demanding, to put more of a stress on your body, and letting go of the idea of I'm going to be overtraining a muscle. So long as you progress in a kind of measured, steady way, I think it will serve you way better than, oh, somebody said it was overtraining, or this person said it was overtraining, so I can't do that. That's what's going to limit you and get you stuck in a plateau. And I think that's what happens to a lot of people. And then they just, you'll see a decent amount of people, at least I've observed, that are consistent with their training, and they go consistently and they train hard. And if you do that, you're going to get a good portion of the results, regardless if you continue to adapt your training or not. But then most of these people plateau. They're in shape and they're just maintaining. And again, if you want to try to continue to see progress, you got to up the ante. You got to add more sets. You got to add more weight. You got to add more reps. You got to keep. And it's nothing too complicated. And then pay attention to how your body responds. I think that if you have that perspective and you see it that way, it will help you to make more sense of the whole overtraining argument and why it's so controversial. Like, how can it be that one person says, no, like 20 sets of chest is like how I grew my chest, and the other person is saying, like, no, the science says this. And like, for most people, they're kind of both right, like 20 sets of chest right out the gate for beginner Bobby probably could be overtraining. He probably could be at a higher risk of injury. But for, experienced Edward, 20 sets of chest, 5 years in, like, this is what he's got to do to like continue to grow his double Ds. And his body has slowly adapted to that demand over time as he's scaled it up. So I hope that I know for some time I was kind of frustrated and confused and trying to figure out who's right and whatever. And just through experiencing it myself, paying attention to the research, paying attention to what people are saying, I think I can kind of summarize it in this way and give it to people who are, maybe struggling to figure it out, or you're a little earlier on in your journey. That's the way to think about it. Don't worry about overtraining so long as you gradually progress. Don't just double your sets because, Rich Piana said do an 8-hour arm workout, or Arnold Schwarzenegger said do this. Like, look at what you're doing, what you started with, establish the foundation, be consistent, train hard, and then just little increment, but add a couple sets, change a few exercises around. If you've been doing that for 6 months, let's hit the muscle, more than once a week, more than twice a week, maybe even start hitting it 3 times a week. Like, things that normally you'd say that's too much. I've found myself, if I do it progressively over time, the key example of this would be the frequency with which I train my arms now. For a time, I was doing it every day. Right now, and then I do every other day. I'm doing it 2 days in a row and then 1 day off. That sounds crazy to most people. And they're like, oh, you can do it. But think about, for years, I never did that because I thought it was too much. I would always, rest at least 3 days for my muscles to fully recover. And at a certain point, it's like, okay, it's been a year straight without any progress. I've tried everything else. Why don't I just try only resting 2 days, and immediately noticing that adding that extra workload each week and upping the amount that I'm forcing my body to do led to more muscle gain. And then I just continue to push further and further. And I think there's probably a limit. Like, if I'm doing 2 arm workouts a day or 3 arm workouts, like, maybe there's a point where it's like too much. And I think every single day was too much. And then of course you sacrifice, okay, well maybe I can't train as hard each workout. So that comes down a little. Maybe the volume comes down a little. These are all kind of things you have to play around with. Wrap up the video by saying if all of this like talk is just confusing you and you're like, oh, I don't want to think about it, you can hire me as your coach and I will go through all these things and program your workouts so that you know that you're going to be continuously progressing your training to give yourself the best chance of continuing to see muscle growth. Everybody's different. Everybody's body responds differently. There's no like perfect plan, but I think I do a good job of communicating with the people I've worked with in the past and work with now to get information about how their body's responding. And then I try to progress the training based off of my personal experience, the scientific literature that I stay up to date on, and any results I've seen training other people. And so if you are trying to gain muscle and you just feel overwhelmed, I'd be happy to potentially work with you and we can kind of adjust your training and your programming to progress as you go and sort of put some of the stuff that I'm discussing in this video into practice. Anyways, I hope that helped you to, at the very least, maybe get a little bit more insight into how to think about your training and how to think about overtraining and allow you to make more gains, build more muscle. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Peace.